Hey there, welcome back to this week's episode of Leading from the Middle. It's where I'm taking an opportunity to connect with 23 different leaders to learn a little bit more about what they believe companies can do to transform their middle managers into their most valuable asset. And I get so excited about this because for me, this is a passion of mine. So I'm Helen Young-McLaughlin, and today I'm going to introduce you to my guest, John Crowder. He is here. He's the Vice President of Healthcare for Integrity Solutions, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his perspective on this topic. But hello, John. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Helen. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's always fun to talk shop with people that share similar passions about the importance of leadership. So I'm very excited to be with you today.
Well, John, thank you for saying yes, first of all. And also, can you just share with our listeners today a little bit more about, how you got to that vice president role and just give us a little snapshot about what got you from maybe your first management position to where you are now?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to the different mentors and coaches I've had throughout my career. I spent 25 years in medical sales. I was fortunate to be asked to lead a team early in my career and kind of took it from there. And again, just leveraged some great support from my mentors and my coaches and listened and learned from what they had to say and spent 25 years mostly covering major medical institutions called IDNs or integrated delivery network systems from Temple to Duke, and work with some really exceptional people to afford the opportunity to make the transition into consulting.
In that 25 years of medical sales, was there a little bit of figuring it out as you went along?
There was, but I think one of the things is that hopefully when you get into a leadership role, you have some humility and realize that you don't know it all, and you follow the path and you very quickly identify the people that you want to emulate. We call it modeling the way. And they have a vested interest in you, and they help you develop your leadership skills. And I think that being at least smart enough to know that I don't have all the answers and then I need help along the way was a big part of helping me be successful in leading teams.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I have a guest, her name is Jen Lara, and she talks about range. And she talks about even the most seasoned leaders, can expand their range. And that's learning new skills and seeing it from a different perspective. And that's what it sounds like you've been fortunate enough to experience.
I can't tell you how many years ago, because it's probably 15 or 20 years, somewhere around in there. I had a great boss. His name is Mike Osborne. He was one of the best bosses I've ever had, along with Karen Settlemeyer and Tim Riley and just a whole Jesse Hales and a whole bunch of others. Anyway, he sent me to a consultant on communication because I was pretty introverted. And he said, look, you got to get out of your shell. You've got to be able to connect with people. It can't just be about production. And so I got to meet with this consultant, and she was telling me that this was, again, 15 or 20 years ago, that she meets with senior leaders, CEOs, senior VP types as a consultant because they want an outside coach, an outside consultant, somebody that they can go to that's not inside of their own organization, that they use as that sounding board. And so that was really an aha moment for me to say, hey, we all need those folks to be able to help us along the way.
It is so true. And I think let's bust the myth that, it just looks so natural for people. It's work.
Yeah.
It really is. We have to exercise these skills every day if we want them to be strong, really.
Absolutely.
So,
And, you can't see yourself, right? So it's always great to have that person that you value, that you respect, that you trust, that kind of gives that reflection back to you. And maybe they don't tell you what you need to do differently, but they show you a different path, or they ask the right questions for you to have those aha moments to grow and learn as a leader.
it's true. I'm a little bit of a truth teller in the coaching work that I do. And I think people appreciate it. I do it with respect. But sometimes we need to see it from a different side. And I just kind of lay it out there. So talking about laying it out there, we want to see your perspective on what you believe that companies need to pay closer attention to. And I'm trying to hone it down to one thing when it comes to developing their managers. And I'd love to hear from you. Tell us
Well,
more.
I appreciate that. It's an interesting question. I've got an opportunity to listen to some of your other guests, and I'm going to try to I haven't heard them all, but I'm going to try to take maybe a slightly different slant on this to just bring something different to the equation. And
Okay.
so I'll tell you a little backstory first. We meet with a lot of very senior people in our line of work, and we take them through this 2-question discussion. One of them is now keep in mind, this is for salespeople in general, but the same thing applies to managers. It's the exact same mechanism, thought process, training process here. And we say to them, if you think about your top performers, what's the biggest differentiator? Is it their sales training and their product knowledge, or is it their attitude, beliefs, values? And overwhelmingly, we hear from senior leaders that attitudes, beliefs, values, that kind of internal drive mechanism far outweighs the traditional knowledge-based learning that so many people have. So we ask them that question, and typically 75 to 95% is attitudes, beliefs, kind of this internal drive mechanism. So then we ask them the second question, and that is, okay, if you believe that box B, the second topic, is the biggest driver to success, what percentage of your time, energy, and resources are committed to growing that? And it's usually less than 10 to 15%.
Yes.
So the thing that drives performance the most, that we tend to spend the least amount of time, energy, and resource on, are this value system, this belief system. What is coaching? What is leading? And do we give resources to be able to give people the tools to coach and lead people through their beliefs and values? So I think focusing on that versus skill set is a place that we need to give more energy and time.
Right. No, and I think that's such a great perspective for the people who are listening in to consider. So how do you do that?
Yeah, that's great. So the first thing that we ask him is, what is your view of leadership? What are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. Is your belief system and your skill set that leading a team is telling them what to do? It's a part of leadership. You have to be able to, quote unquote, manage by telling people what to do. But if your skill set and your belief system in there, you're probably not going to be as productive as you need to be as a leader. The second part is, okay, so we have to tell people what to do, right? It's a part of leading, but how do we grow people, right? And how do we have those conversations? And when we tell people how to get better, we're managing them. There's a couple of sayings that are I think integral to helping people understand what coaching is. And one of them is information discovered when I'm coaching somebody and they have that aha moment. Mm-hmm. Is more powerful than information delivered. And that's right. Me telling them as the leader, right? And so when we get people to talk and share with us and they have those aha moments, they own those words. They own that feedback. We have to know as coaches and as leaders, how do we tee that up for them? How do we ask the right questions? And what does that give me as a leader? It allows me to assess what they know and what they don't know. Now, let's say that I understand that they get a lot of what we want them to do. They can verbalize it, they can demonstrate it, but there's a portion that they don't. Do I then rush in and tell them, yeah, but you need to do this? No, because that takes me back to managing them and telling them what to do. We need to add on to that through a series of questions. So what if we did this? Or how would that impact the process? Or what do you need to move forward? Again, to give them an opportunity to be able to verbalize what they know and what they don't know, what their vision is. And that way you can assess and help them along the way. That's a different approach than telling people what to do, which is managing them.
Absolutely really different. And this is where I love bringing the coaching skills into businesses, because something that I believe, I know at least when I was starting out, this was not even discussed, but it is that bringing in that component of curiosity, right? That is not something I could line up 100 different managers that I've worked with. And I could say to them, hey, were you taught the power of curiosity? And they're going to go, what? What are you talking about? which is how do we're naturally fixers, right? We naturally want to solve, fix, resolve, whatever. That is our natural instinct to do that. And that's probably what many people were really good at when they were individual contributors. Shifting from that individual contributor role to the manager role, learning, and one of the first things, well, self-awareness is really the first thing, but really learning how to just stop. And you want to fix it with every fiber in your body, but to stop. Just ask that person a question. I feel like it ties into exactly what you're talking about. That then motivates the person and encourages them to think through the process, the steps, etc. And it gives them it empowers them really to, you've got this. Great. You just said it, maybe there's a few tweaks in the background that you're giving, but this whole fix it mindset, go in direct. Yes, we do have to direct at times, but the fix it with the curiosity, if people can learn, like, I'm a natural fixer and I need to stop when I start, managing people and developing them and empowering them. Tell me more about that, John.
Helen, it's so interesting because that really is where we want to take people. It's that natural reaction to fix, to tell, to give direction, right? And then all of a sudden we get them to change their view of selling. What is it I'm trying to do? How do I grow and develop people? It's a different skill set. And the first time you do it, feels really good. And so one of the things that we do when we take people through our course is usually it's a 1-day course where we give them a foundation, and we do a couple of them. We say, here's your playbook, right? This is what you coach from. Here's a common language, so we're all on the same page. And then the third piece, which I think is really important, is here's a shared definition of what good looks like for all of us. So there's consistency across our leadership team. So we take these frontline managers, sometimes tenured managers, and we take them through this evolution. And then that night we ask them to have a 15-minute coaching session. We give them a script and a way to follow it, to take them from telling people or being reactive to being more understanding, seeking to understand. And then we ask them to come back and debrief. And I'm not kidding you, Helen, when I tell you that we ask them to do a 15-minute call, and some of them come back in there and they have an hour's worth of call information they want to share with us, it's cathartic for them. They've made that revolution, that transition to, man, this is what coaching and developing people is all about. It's not about me. The success doesn't come through me. My success as a leader comes through that of others, and it comes through understanding and then offering support based on that understanding.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yes, it is for so many people. You didn't have to do that when you were leading yourself. You just told yourself what to do and you went out to execute.
Exactly.
It doesn't work when you're leading other people.
I liken it to, I'm right-handed, so my dominant hand is right. I'm right-handed. I liken it to having to put the instrument, the writing instrument, into my non-dominant hand. It's a little awkward at first. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel right. And yet we can still use that non-dominant hand for, if we do it a little bit each day, we'll get a little bit better. Like Adam Conrad, who was on my, one of the people that I interviewed, he mentioned that too, 1% better every day. And I think that this is an area where if companies paid attention, hello out there, please dial in here, and knew that going from individual contributor to manager does not require the same skill set. If we could really look at exactly what you just talked about, just not going in to fix it, giving them a couple of tools where not only do they practice it, because that's the application part, which is awesome, then they get motivated because they see the value in it. And then they can start to practice that on a regular basis.
There's so many positive stories I want to tell you. I have a quick real world example. So
sure.
I have a manager. She's one of the best managers I've ever had. This is an incredible leader. And she was going through this transition. And so we met one day and I was trying to explain a situation to her. And every time I'd get a little bit of the story out, she would try to intercede. She would try to interject. She would try to fix it. And that would lead to another discussion. And it was getting kind of frustrating because I couldn't get the whole story out. And I just remember, this is how profound this was. This was 20 years ago. She
Hmm.
realized what she was doing. She realized she was in fix-it mode. She sat back, she put her hands on her lap, and she said, John, I'm sorry. She goes, tell me the whole story. Now, how 20 years later, I still
Still
remember
remember
how
that.
that made me feel, right? And I value and appreciate her today because not only was I able to express everything and then allow her to coach me through the problems that I needed her help
Hmm.
on, but it made an impression on who I was as an employee and to this day as a leader. Because again, as we talked about, you have those mentors, those people that shape your career. And so that's maybe an example of where, seeking to understand first before trying to solve problems or often solutions changes the relationship and the dynamic with those that report to you.
It does. And I'll counter share here. So I have a program called the Leverage Academy where about 10 managers come together, and we have this 6-month journey. And within that first month, there's one of the exercises that I do on listening to understand versus listening to speak or solve.
Mhm.
And it's probably one of the top exercises out of the whole 6 months. It goes back to month 1 that people remember the most because they realize how hard it is. And they also realize the value of it. And so I just think that it might feel a little too simple to be true. And it's not simple. I mean, it is hard to adjust and rewire our brains to do something a little bit different. But once they learn that listening to understand, just like you said, it shows value to the person that they're talking to. And that value, you said it yourself. I remember how I felt.
Yeah.
I remember I teleported back to that feeling. And that's what my goal is in companies, is that managers will have the skills that they need in order to be able to motivate, show value. Yes, we want people to be productive. We want to get the task list done, all those wonderful things. But ultimately, we want to help develop people. And that's why I was excited to talk to you today, because I know we share the same value in that of wanting to help people, empower people and develop them and see them thrive in their roles.
You said a couple things. I think for leaders to be successful, part of their value proposition or part of their ethics is my success comes through the success of others. And if you get excited about that, I think you've got a chance to be a really great leader because you enjoy helping people develop it. But you also said something, and I think we connected very early on through this. And you mentioned your 6-month training process. I can't take you from being a right-handed writer to a left-handed writer in one session. We all know about the forgetting curve, right? When we take people through a workshop, they're going to forget 75% of what they learned in the workshop within 48 hours, unless it's reinforced or coached, right? It's just
Right.
the way it is. It's just human nature. And so what happens is that if we want to improve and change people's skill set and ability over time, whether it's coaching people, swimming, hitting a golf ball, flying an airplane, or taking out a gallbladder, right? It happens through repetition over a period of time. And for adults, it's vitally important not only that they experience it, but that they verbalize it. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, when I say it, I own it. And that puts it out into the universe, and it creates an era or an aura of accountability.
Yeah.
Without that opportunity for that exchange, the learning is muted, significantly stalled. So we have to have repetition over a period of time to really develop the skills.
Such a great point. I'm so glad you said that, because that really was the intention after, doing this work for 20 plus years in corporate. When I branched out on my own, I knew in developing this program, a few things. And one of them was I wanted people, as soon as we finished the group cohort, it was immediately actionable, right?
Yeah.
So you leave, you can apply it. You leave, you can apply it. And of course, I add in one-on-one coaching in between those sessions to reinforce that. So I think it's a great point. I want to also, as we wrap up, I want to just give you an opportunity. If you were to bottom line, John, you talked about so many great things. I'm really excited. I'm excited to listen back to this. But if you were to bottom line again, the number one thing that you would suggest companies pay closer attention to, tell me what that would be.
Don't just invest in people's knowledge-based learning and their skills, right? Invest in their attitudes, their beliefs, their values. Give them, if I want somebody to coach effectively, the number one thing that they can impact are their beliefs and the values of the people that are on their team. There was a really interesting study, if I could wrap this up real quickly.
Sure.
And basically, it just came out within the last 3 to 6 months. And what it said is that the manager has as much impact on their direct reports' mental health, 69%, as the spouse, more than the physician at 51%, and get this, the therapist at 41%. That's how influential leaders are in the people that report to their team. And so we're not asking people to be armchair psychologists or psychiatrists, right? That's not the goal. What the point is this, is that if we know that that impacts people's performance, retention, engagement, job satisfaction, let's equip our leaders with the tools, the skills, the ability, and the mission, as Adam said, the mission to be able to coach to people and their values and ethics and their belief system, in addition to their skills and their knowledge-based learning. It's got to be more than just that.
That's such a great wrap up. I don't even want to talk because that was that was fabulous. John, if people would like to learn a little bit more about you and the work you do, where can they find you?
Well, the name of the company that I work for is called Integrity Solutions, and I will say this: who do we work with? I'll just give you. Healthcare is about 45% of our revenue, but just to give you a concept of who our clients are, the top
Sure.
3 medical device companies in the world are our clients. And we have a host of others that are in the non-medical space. So integritysolutions.com is our website. I certainly am able to connect through LinkedIn or through my email address, which is jcrowder@integritysolutions.com. If you have any questions or you want to talk about sales and or leadership development, we'd love to have a discussion with you.
Absolutely. And we will make sure that people have that information at the ready. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in to another interview of Leading from the Middle. I'm really looking forward to hearing some feedback from you. I want to connect with you. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Helen Young-McLaughlin. Just hit that hyphen in between Young and McLaughlin, or you can go to my website at helenyoungcoaching.com. Thanks again and have a great day.